Welcome to the Clarity Coach Podcast with Rockie Lee, strategic intervention coach, specializing with singles and couples, helping them find clarity in life, in relationships, and in personal development. And now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of Clarity Coach Love Talks. I have with me again my co-host, Kimberly, and she'll be joining us in this conversation today where we talk about the pride. Yikes, the pride. And is pride the number one killer of all marriages? I believe it is, but we're going to discover why that is in our episode today. So, Kimberly, how you doing?
Hi there, Rocky. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing very good.
And hello to all of our listeners as well. I'm absolutely looking forward to this conversation today where Rocky's going to talk to us about pride. Okay, so powerful title. Pride, the number one killer of all marriages. I'm sure many of our listeners believe that there's a lot of other things that destroy marriages. But tell me, Rocky, why are you saying pride is at the top of that list?
Yeah, most people would believe that the things that destroy marriages are kind of like that trifecta thing that we all believe in, right? That we've been told, the addictions, the money, and the sex. So we all think that those are the three things that will destroy a marriage. In reality, those things might just be the last straw that, the kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back. They're usually like that. Right. So when we see addictions or money issues or there's an infidelity issue, those might be the kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, but they're never really the thing that destroys a marriage. Right. So addictions, money, sex, these are all the byproducts of things that the marriage is already struggling with. Right. So, for example, addictions are all stress related. Money is a stress related thing, but it's also surrounding around beliefs about poverty. And sex or infidelity is really about a core need that's not being met. So all of those things are the real issues, but the actual addictions, money, sex, these are just the byproducts of that. So that's why for me, these things don't really destroy marriages, but pride does, because pride's the main thing that causes us on the inside to want to resist healing or to resist repairing or want to resist trying or fighting for our marriage, right? So that's the reason why I think pride's the number one killer.
So tell me more about that pride. Like, how does it actually kill a marriage?
Yeah, pride, in a simple way, if I could put it in layman's terms, pride is when I'm saying, my life is all about me. It's about my rights, my entitlements, my ways, and it's not about you. So pride is also saying, if you don't do it my way, then that's the highway, right? So you have to do it my way. You have to do it the way that I expect it. It's about my rights, not yours. It's about what I'm entitled, not yours. That's pride. It's a full resistance thing. And I'll share a little bit more about that later on. But for now, this is what pride is about. It's all about me. And for those of you, if you're believers, if you're a Christian believer and you read the Bible, there's a way that it's formulated in the Bible. And how the Bible scripts it is that there's three different ways that we talk about pride. It's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Now let's break it down. The pride that comes from the lust of the flesh is where I'm constantly desiring something for me only. And it's all about me. There's no consideration about my spouse or my partner. Now, pride from the lust of the eyes, this is about the idea that I'm desiring something that I don't have, but I'm willing to get it at all costs. So in other words, I'm willing to offend my partner or hurt my partner in the midst of trying to go after what I want. That would be lust of the eyes. Okay. Then there's the pride of life. And basically this is saying, I know everything, I know it all, I don't need help, and I don't need accountability, and I don't want to be teachable, and I don't need to grow. You just need to do whatever it is that I say or follow my instructions. Well, essentially that's the pride of life, right? Anytime I'm not wanting to be teachable, anytime I don't want to grow, anytime I don't want to understand, that's pride. So this is really what's destroying our marriage, right? It's this whole identity or this world where I've created, it's about me and not about anybody else.
So how do we even know if we have pride? Like, how does a person identify that?
Oh, there's so many great symptoms of pride. Like I don't think that we could ever exhaust this, but here's a
Pride is a
massive
disease.
but here's a massive list for you guys. And when I read through these, I'm just like, oh, ouch, ouch. Yeah, okay, that's me, right? So like they're
Hurt a
there.
lot of feelings out.
Yeah, but we just don't want to acknowledge it. But here's a good list for you guys to start with. So here's the symptoms of pride. If you have expectations, that's pride. If you hear yourself complain or making complaints about somebody or someone or people groups, that's pride. If you're blaming somebody, that's pride. Refusing to take responsibility for your part of the problem or creating that problem, that's pride. Thinking that there is nothing for you that needs to change. So if you ever hold yourself in a position where, hey, my partner has to do all the change and I don't, I'm perfect, guess what? That's pride, right? Demanding that our partner changes first before we do, that's pride. Perfectionism is actually pride. So actually perfectionism, we kind of treat that as like a, oh, very good habit scholarly thing. It's really not. There's a difference between excellence versus perfection. Well, perfection is really kind of a disguise for pride. Comparing what I have done to what my partner has not done, that's pride. Having presumptions and assumptions, that's pride. Anger comes from pride. Not being teachable is pride. Resistance to truth versus my subjective point of view, that's pride. Resistance to possibilities, that's pride too. Believing I can do all things on my own and I don't need a partner, that too is pride. Playing safe, making decisions that are comfortable can also be a sign of pride. Knowing what to do, but yet choosing not to do it or choosing not to take action, that's pride. And here's the last one. When we love ourselves more than we love someone else, that's actually pride.
Pride is sounding like a negative attribute. It's for sure. We're
It
actually coming up
is.
against a break, though. So let's talk about that more in just a couple seconds here.
Awesome.
More with Rockie Lee, strategic intervention coach and host of the Clarity Coach podcast after this.
Having clarity in our lives is of the utmost importance. Clarity is the pathway to change, the juice that gets us up in the morning, the purpose that inspires us to strive for something greater. Clarity is also the ability to see things in a different way than how we believe them to be, giving us options to the possibilities that surround us. Clarity gives us the courage to bring change to the issues that hinder us from believing for a better tomorrow. Rockie Lee is a strategic intervention coach and will help you find clarity in life, in relationships, and in personal development. For more information on Clarity Coach workshops or to book a coaching session with Rockie Lee, call us at 778-883-7203. That's 778-883-7203. Or visit us online at www.claritycoach.ca/bookings. That's www.claritycoach.ca/bookings.
Now, back to Rockie Lee, strategic intervention coach and host of the Clarity Coach podcast.
Hello, everyone. We're back with Rockie Lee, and we are talking about pride, the number one killer of marriages. Super interesting topic. We delved deep into what pride is and what it means and all of the negative connotations just before the break, actually,
Yes.
which actually reminds me of another word, ego.
Mm-hmm.
And ego and pride seem to be used together a lot. Can you explain to us, are they the same or are they different?
Yeah, they are essentially the same, right? But think of ego more like it has a very specific role compared to pride. So pride is more like a characteristic of how we show up in life. Ego is more like a
How you
little
present.
animal that has a role to play, right? So how
Hmm.
I normally share it with people is imagine ego is like a little puppy dog that your parents got you, and along with the puppy dog came a guard dog trainer, right? The best in the world. So as you grew up with your puppy dog, you were also training your puppy dog to be your very best guard dog, right? To protect you. Well, that's essentially what ego is. Ego is our protective mechanism that shelters us when we think that something's going to go wrong or when we think that we're going to get hurt. Ego is there to protect us. And now here's the problem with the scenario. If I stop training ego as I grow up at some point, what happens is ego only knows one role. And that role is I have to protect my owner at all costs. So even though I'm married, ego doesn't recognize my marriage. Ego doesn't recognize my marriage partner because ego is only loyal to me. So the problem is that ego will interpret my partner and his or her actions based on the same line or the same lane as a bad person trying to attack me, right? So in other words, ego can't tell the difference between intention versus imminent danger.
Hmm.
So that's the problem with ego and pride is that ego's out to protect me. And so what happens is let's say my son is running towards me with a baseball bat because he wants to play baseball with me. Well, ego will see that, and unless I retrain it, it will interpret my son's actions as imminent danger. And it will treat my son the same way that a bad guy running at me with a baseball bat, right? It
Hmm.
will react to my son the same way as the bad person, right? So this is the tension, is that I actually have to retrain ego, which basically means I have to be so aware again of my pride, of where my pride is getting in the way. And the more I understand that, the more I can see where my ego shows up to protect me. So they're tied together, but they function very differently.
That's another statement that I'm sure people are familiar with when pride gets in the way. So can you speak to that point? Like, what do we do then if pride is in the way?
Yeah, you know, when we find that pride is getting in the way, the best thing to do is to forgive. Because somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
your heart is a place where you've hardened yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're unwilling to budge. And there's a reason for that. And typically that reason is because I've been hurt before. So I'm not budging. I'm holding my lane. I'm not going to change. You have to change. Right. So really the quickest thing and the best thing that you can do is just forgive. Forgive yourself, forgive people, right? Forgive the situation, but do forgiveness. The second thing that you can do is to really learn to love and care for your partner deeper. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've seen marriages fall apart because at some point the couple have gotten to a place where they have stopped loving each other and they've stopped caring for each other. It's not that they couldn't, it's that they just simply chose to stop loving. They chose to stop caring. So if you feel like you've got some pride going on, lean into loving your partner, caring for your partner more. Another way to get around it or to deal with your pride is to actually open yourself up more. So when we talk about the word vulnerability, we typically associate vulnerability with being more emotional, and that has nothing to do with vulnerability. Vulnerability has everything to do with you being more open. In other words, letting someone in, right? Or you going out and letting people discover more of you. That's vulnerability. Sometimes emotions might play into that, but that's more of a byproduct, not so much really what vulnerability is. So if you lean into becoming more open with somebody, in other words, you need to take some risks, right? So taking risks, leaning into what's uncomfortable, and sometimes leaning into what you're afraid of will help you begin to get past pride. I would say the two other ways that would be super important would be start making your partner the priority instead of trying to be right. That's really key. That's really
That sounds
difficult
like
too
very
at
good
times.
advice, actually. Yes.
So, but if we would just make our partner a priority in our lives more than our need to be right, you'll see the pride begin to, dissolve.
Melt away.
And
Yeah.
and last but not least, take ownership. Take ownership for your choices and your actions, how you think, what you think, and your behavior. In other words, take ownership to how you treat your partner, and you'll see pride dissolve away.
Can you share a story with us of like firsthand what you've seen, how pride has destroyed marriages?
Mm. Yeah, I had a situation once where a married couple had come in and they were really full of tremendous anger towards each other. And as I started to work with the couple, what came to light is that the partner wanted to, the wife, she wanted a baby. Now, the problem wasn't the fact that she wanted a baby. The problem was that actually the person wanted the baby irregardless of what the partner felt. So, in other words, this partner kind of saw the baby as kind of like the goal, the trophy that she needed to have in her life, and she was willing to get it at all costs. And that literally happened in the marriage, where how she treated her husband was so damaging, and she was absolutely willing to do that for having a kid. So she would begin to make conditions, or she would negotiate behavior and treatment based on whether they can have a kid. And the more the husband would give into that, the more she would behave better, but only to a certain point until she got triggered again. Or if he didn't agree with having a kid, then on those days she would treat him really harsh, like really, really, really harsh. And that's essentially an example of how pride can get in the way, and that's what destroys a marriage.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question for you about that specifically. Did he not want a child just because he didn't, or was it her pride and her pushing that made him resentful of the thought of having a child with her?
Yeah, it's the second one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was actually very open to having a child.
But
He
it's
was
just how
just
she approached it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just thinking of it from a more practical stance. He was just kind of like, hey, I'd like to make sure that we save up enough money to have this kid, and I want to make sure that we have, steady jobs, which they were all well on their way in doing. And so he wasn't ever objecting to that. He actually did want to have a child himself, but it just became such a contentious point that the focus of all the fights revolved around having the kid as opposed to actually loving each other. So what I kind of got out of that situation was that if she had the child, I don't even know if she would have even wanted to have the husband.
Yeah, sort of like an end goal.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt, right? The whole session, and that's really what destroyed the marriage. It really it wasn't their
Like a
inability to
conditional
love each
marriage.
other.
That's what I see that as. A conditional
Absolutely,
marriage.
absolutely. That's essentially what that is, right? It's a very transactional, conditional relationship. It's not even a
That's
marriage,
too bad.
right?
Yeah. No, it's the person within the marriage that has that sort of mind frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need this at all costs. So we're running out of time here. What's, say, top one, top two action steps that somebody can take to, let's say, identify their pride and then subsequently start to work on letting that go?
Yeah, wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked me this to wrap it up. The number one thing is notice how you treat people. Notice how you treat your
That's
partner.
hard for somebody with pride. It's difficult for a prideful person. So you're saying it like it's no thing, but I mean, recognition is like probably the most difficult thing for somebody with a lot of pride. I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, it is. But here's the thing, like if we say that we love our partner, right, then we're going to actually have to find a way to see where we're not loving them. Right? Like we can't say like, oh, I love my partner so much and then yet still choose to treat them in a horrific way, right? Or a harsh way. That's not congruent. So really one of the best ways to begin to see where your pride is to see actually how you're treating your partner. How are you treating your partner? Does your partner, are they able to experience how much you love them today better than they did yesterday? Right? That would be a really
great. So checking in with your marriage on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's one of the main ways. It's more about an internal question of asking like, has my partner experienced how much I love them today more than I did yesterday? Right? Because we can answer that question, right? Even if we're half-assed in answering that, we'll still answer that, right? But just that answer alone tells me where pride might be. Right? The other thing is to begin to ask yourselves, like, are you consistently blaming or complaining about your partner? Because that right there
that usually comes from within. Yeah, what's going on with you?
Pride.
Yeah. And if they need help, they can come to you, of course.
Absolutely. Would love to help people on that.
We are just about out of time here, Rocky. Thank you so much for today's conversation. Thanks to our listeners for joining us today on this episode of Love Talks. A reminder, if you need some help in your marriage or relationship, Rocky is available for free consultations. Just visit him at claritycoach.ca to set up an appointment. And Rocky, tell us where else we can find you online.
You can always find me online at claritycoach.ca/love talks. That's claritycoach.ca/love talks. And you can listen to all my past episodes, as well as you can reach out to me with any of the contact information that I have in those episodes.
Awesome. Thanks again so much. Catch you guys on the next episode of Love Talks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. And of course, get in touch with Rockie Lee anytime for a free consultation at claritycoach.ca.
Thanks for listening to the Clarity Coach Podcast with Rockie Lee, Strategic Intervention Coach. If you have any questions regarding Clarity Coach or the Clarity Coach workshops, please call us at 778-883-7203. That's 778-883-7203. And visit us online at www.claritycoach.ca. That's www.claritycoach.ca.